Let me start with a question that might grab you by the throat. If you were down to your last dollar, your last blanket, your last thin slice of safety, and you heard a child crying on a busy street, would you stop? Or would you keep walking and pretend you didn't hear it? Be honest, because that night, that choice split my life clean in two, and I still think about how easy it would have been to look away. It was that hour when the city blushes orange and the shadows get long Market Street humming, like it had better places to be my back against a closed shop. A piece of flattened cardboard under me that used to say, fragile like a joke, my belly heavy, my mouth dry, counting coins with my thumb, and a kind of hope that wasn't fooling anyone. And then I heard it soft, but sharp enough to cut through the horns and the chatter. A kid crying. Not a tantrum cry, not the I want candy cry, but the thin, scared kind that makes your ribs ache. You know what I mean. Everything in me said, keep your head down, not your business. The world is dangerous for a woman like you. And everything decent in me stood up anyway, slowly, because me and the baby moved like a team, and teams have a rhythm. I followed the sound past a lamppost with stickers peeling off, past a man arguing with his phone until I found him. Maybe hair doing its own thing, shirt that was clean this morning. Now wearing the city fists, rubbing his eyes, trying not to sob because even at 5 you learn not to make people uncomfortable. Hey there, I said. Soft, careful, like I was talking to a bird with a broken wing. You're okay, sweetheart. I'm Megan. He froze, looked up, eyes shining with that big kind of fear. People streamed around us like water splits around a rock. Not one person slowed, not one person asked if he belonged to someone. You ever notice how crowds go blind right when someone needs a pair of eyes most? Yeah, that happened. Can I sit with you, I asked, hands where he could see them. Because even kindness can look big when you're small, he nodded. Barely, I led him to my spot by the wall, sat him on the cardboard, my bones complaining in the way bones do when the ground has been your bed for too long. I had one crumpled bill that I'd been saving for my dinner like it was a secret, and I looked at his hollow cheeks and knew secrets are only worth something if you can carry them. I crossed to the food stand, traded my dinner for his, came back with rice and beans, warm in my hands. Those cheap paper plates making saints out of all of us for a minute. Slow down. I laughed when he shoveled it in. Or you'll choke and then I'll have to explain to a doctor why I'm a terrible waitress. He giggled, small but real, and it landed right where it hurts and heals at the same time. When he finished, I asked for his name. He had to go find it inside him, like it had wandered off. Griffin, he whispered. I smiled. That's a strong name. Hi, Griffin. Do you remember Mom or Dad where they are? He shook his head, eyes filling, and I didn't promise something I couldn't guarantee, but I promised we'd try. Sometimes. Trying is the only honest promise there is. I took his hand, tiny and warm, surprisingly sure for someone so scared. We walked under the streetlights that were flickering awake one by one like the city was remembering. It had a job to do. The police station smelled like coffee and damp paper. The officer at the desk looked up, took in my frayed jacket, my belly, my scuffed shoes, then looked at Griffin like he'd seen this movie before and hated the ending. I found him on Market Street. He's lost, I said polite, because I've learned that polite is armor when you don't have any other kind. Uh-huh, he said, leaning back. And where did you pick him up? I repeated it. Market Street, the officer lifted his chin like he was measuring a cloud. We get people like you all the time. People like me. That phrase can make you small enough to slip through a crack in the floor. Social services is closed. Take him somewhere else. My cheeks burned. My eyes watered. Not because I was fragile, because anger has a way of boiling over, and steam needs somewhere to go on. Griffin's hand tightened, and my voice stayed gentle. Come on, sweetheart. We'll figure it out. And we stepped back into the city that had its own heartbeat, and none of it seemed to beat for us. The unfinished building where I slept was all bones and moonlight concrete that kept the rain away. Most nights, rebar sticking up like old spears, I spread my thin blanket. The baby rolled under my hand like she was turning toward the sound of my voice. I gave Griffin the last piece of bread I'd saved. Watched him eat like he wasn't sure the world would let him finish. I asked him to remember anything about home, anything at all. Big house. Lots of trees, he said. After thinking so hard, he closed one eye. Daddy Brian, we held that clue like gold. I tucked the blanket around him and whispered to both children, one inside, one beside me, we're safe tonight. I promise, and you're right to ask. Can you promise that? But some nights you say it out loud so your courage doesn't run away. Morning is kinder when you have a job to do. We traded coins for hot bean cakes from the lady at the corner grill. Her smile made him feel like he belonged to someone. And for a second, that was enough. We went back to the lamppost where I'd found him, because sometimes the obvious thing is the right thing and the hard thing. In the same breath, we sat and watched the city get noisier. I made up stories about clouds racing like dragons, about pigeons as secret mailmen. He laughed in those quick, bright pieces only kids have hours stretched. The sun slid, and then the black SUV glided to the curb like a shark in a quiet bay. The driver jumped out, eyes frantic. Griffin, he shouted, voice already hoarse from a night of trying. Griffin stood like someone had said his real name for the first time. That's my name, he whispered. The driver ran to us. He's my boss's son. We've been searching everywhere. My body wanted to believe him, my brain said. Caution, I didn't move. If that's true, I'm coming with you. He doesn't leave my sight. Of course, he said, relief breaking across his face like light. Please. The seats in the SUV were soft, in a way that felt wrong, like my bones couldn't trust them. City blocks changed to tree-lined roads, to gates that open. Because someone says so, to a driveway that curved on purpose, the house ahead looking like a movie, didn't know where to stop. The door opened, and a man stood there. Tall, sharp features, tired eyes that woke up the second his son jumped into his arms. Daddy Griffin yelled, his little legs pumping. He hit that man's chest. Like a hug could fix the night. Brian folded around him. Relief is a sound. I swear it is. It came out of him like a prayer. He hadn't had time to say. The driver told him the story in quick pieces. The market, the food, the blanket. The police who looked through us. Brian turned to me. Gratitude that didn't taste like pity, which is rare enough to feel like another kind of miracle. I can't thank you enough, he said. I'm Brian. I'm just glad he's safe, I said. My voice doing that almost break. I wish it didn't. But there it is. Please come in, he said, like the word please belonged to me too. The house smelled like bread and polished wood. Chandeliers threw light around. Like they were showing off. My shoes squeaked against marble, like they were confessing how out of place they felt. He sat me at a table long enough to park a car on brought soup and warm bread, pulled out a chair like I was a person and not a problem. Griffin asked if I could sit next to him forever. Brian laughed, the kind that steals tension right out of the room. And I remembered what it felt like to eat without checking if anyone was watching your hands. He asked how I'd ended up on that sidewalk. I told the truth without decorating it. Parents shut the door, boyfriend ran the second responsibility. Knocked, friends tried. But couches get small when rent is due. I learned to sleep with one eye open, learned to move along the rails, learned to be invisible. He listened without pretending to know, the way you listen to weather before you decide to fly. Where are you staying? He asked an old building near the bus station. It leaks, but it's better than outside. That's no place for you or the baby, he said, voice quiet but final. I have a guest house, light work here, cleaning, organizing, nothing heavy, private, paid your own key. You don't even know me, I said, because the world had taught me to check the fine print. When kindness showed up wearing shoes. I know you fed my son and didn't leave him, he said. That's enough. Sometimes the thing you need most is someone deciding you're enough without a debate. The guest house was small and clean and felt like respect. Mornings started with a cup of tea in a kitchen that sounded like clocks and hope. I dusted the grand staircase, learned the windows by heart. Griffin followed me carrying towels that dragged the floor, making little dust piles in all the wrong places. You're my best friend, he told me one afternoon, and I had to turn away like I was checking a streak on the glass, because joy can knock you right off your feet. If you let it, Brian brought bread, still warm, asked about books and foods I missed and baby kicks. He listened to answers that weren't shiny, and that kind of listening is a doorway when you've been sleeping on the stoop. Then the silver sports car came, and the air temperature dropped 10 degrees. She stepped out like a magazine had learned to move cream dress hair that had its own manager sunglasses slid off slow so you could feel how it felt to be measured and marked down. Gloria, Brian said, smiling with his mouth more than his eyes. This is Megan. She helped Griffin. How kind, she said the words, sharp enough to nick your fingers. If you weren't careful, here's something I know. Some people don't have to push you down if the room will do it for them. They make suggestions, tilt their head, spill coffee on the floor. You just mopped and say, oh dear, could you handle that again? I like things spotless, and then they watch to see whether you bleed or bow. I bowed. Not because I was weak, because I was strategic. A roof over a baby's head beats winning an argument. You never get credit for, but she kept testing fingerprints on mirrors. I had just polished vases tipping over like accidents that learned how to walk, comments with a sugar edge, our kind of people, she said once to the air, in a room where I was invisible on purpose, and I looked down at my hands and thought about how hands tell the truth when mouths don't. Brian saw it, asked if I was okay. I said, I was fine, he said. Tell me if you change your mind. And sometimes that's all you need to hold on one more day. Then came the night. The house held its breath, storm grumbling at the edge of town. The hallway long and quiet, me with a laundry basket on my hip. I heard a voice slip under the sitting room door. Gloria. I wouldn't have stopped if her tone hadn't been the kind you sharpen when no one's looking. You promised me it would be done, she hissed, a man answered, muffled. I couldn't catch the words. Her voice cut again. Brian thinks that boy is everything as long as Griffin is alive. Lightning flashed. Thunder swallowed the sentence when the world came back. I heard the rest. You failed once. Handle it. No witnesses this time. The laundry basket slid right out of my hands, landed soft, because towels are merciful. The door opened. She stepped into the hall with satisfaction. Sitting on her face like a crown, she didn't see me in the shadow. Her heels clicked to the front door, and the house swallowed her up. What would you have done? Would you tell him and risk being called a liar? Would you keep quiet and live with yourself? I stood in my guest house and argued with the ceiling. The baby turned under my palm like she was voting. I knocked on Brian's study door. He looked up, and you know how you can tell when someone is bracing for bad news, but hoping it's a delivery, that look. It's about Gloria, I said. Then I told him everything. Every word. Every chill. He listened without interrupting. Jaw hard, eyes going dark like a storm moving across a lake. You're sure, he asked. I nodded. I swear I believe you, he said just like that. And I had to grab the back of a chair, because relief can be a punch too. He called a private investigator named Heir, a man who made rooms sit up straight. Heir pulled security footage from the night. Griffin disappeared. We watched with that silence you only hear when truth is about to put on a badge. Griffin in the garden. the ball rolling toward the side gate, a man in a dark jacket. Gloria's face sliding in and out of frame. Her mouth moving quick, her glance back over her shoulder. The gate opening, a child following his ball. The latch closing, Brian's voice broke the silence. "That's enough." Hale nodded. "It's enough for the police," and something in the house let out a breath I hadn't realized it was holding. Officers came at dusk, Griffin sleeping upstairs with his dinosaur tucked under his chin like a tiny guard. The cops watched the video, radios murmured notes, got written, they waited, we waited. When Gloria swept in near midnight, she stopped like a bird that learns the window is real, too late. "What is this?" she said. Outrage painted on. "We know," Brian answered. "Tired and done, the cameras saw you. You opened the gate, you let someone lure my son." "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "You can't prove—" "We have the video," the officer said, and she deflated, then twisted toward romance like people do when they need a softer story. "I did it because I love you. I wanted our family. I wanted children who mattered." "Love doesn't harm a child," Brian said, and I watched his face unclench from months of pretending he hadn't seen what he'd been seeing. They read her rights, walked her out. Her look on me, full of venom and regret and entitlement, all mixed together. The door shut. The house quieted. Brian exhaled. "It's over almost," I said, "because dawn has a way of making claims. The night can't argue with the next." Days were lighter, like someone had opened all the windows at once. The staff hummed. Griffin's laugh came back in entire pieces. Brian sat on my porch at night, told me stories about being 10 and selling lemonade, about getting lost in the woods and being found by a father who ran through branches like love can find anything. I told him small truths that turn into bigger ones once you say them out loud. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. He didn't plan fireworks, no ring hidden in a dessert, no choir in the hedges. He looked at me on the terrace under a line of lanterns that moved just a little in the warm air and said, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you and your baby to be part of it then." He said my name plain, like he'd decided to carry it. "Megan, will you marry me?" I nodded. First, because words got stuck in the good place, then I said yes, just to hear it out loud. We picked a simple ring, later than gold, a diamond that caught light, like a drop of water. "It's very you," he said, and I laughed, because I was still learning what very me meant when life wasn't a fight. We married in the garden under an arch of white flowers, vows short on purpose, promises about truth and kindness and courage and keeping the door open. Griffin carried a little book like it was a crown and didn't drop it. The cook cheered. Mrs. Lane cried into a napkin. Mr. Hale clapped from the back like justice and joy. Can share a room if you let them. We ate sandwiches and fruit and small cakes, took pictures that didn't try to make us look like someone else, just Brian's arm around me and Griffin tucked in and my hand on my round belly, the kind of picture that turns a house into a home right on paper. Weeks slid by, soft lawyers did their quiet work, neighbors whispered only to each other. We went to the clinic, saw our baby on the screen, waving like she already knew. Her big brother's voice found out she was a girl named her Hope, because that's what she'd been since the night I heard a child crying, and stood up even though my fear told me to sit down. The night she came was all thunder and rain, the car lights making rivers out of the driveway. The nurses moved with that gentle speed you wish you could bottle. Brian counted breaths with me, pressed a cool cloth to my forehead. Didn't leave, not once, when Hope cried that first high, bright cry. The room cracked open, and my chest did too. Griffin came in the morning with a bundle of garden flowers tied with string and looked at his sister like a window into tomorrow and said thank you. And I laughed and cried and told him we did this together. "You want the clean ending?" I know tie it up with a bow and a moral you can put on a mug, but let me be honest. The police station that turned us away is still there. The coffee still smells, burned at the edges. The file drawers still stick in the humidity. There will be another woman walking in with a truth that doesn't look expensive enough to believe there will be another officer who decides people like you is a sentence and not a question. Do you think that's fair? What do you think justice should look like when class and kindness collide? I'm asking because stories don't fix systems, people do. I can hear a few of you already. Did you marry him for money? Did the bad woman get what she deserved? Did you just get lucky? I married a man who listened when I told the truth and chose his son over his reputation. The woman who thought love meant control is learning what consequences feel like when the world stops making excuses. And as for luck, I think we call miracles luck when we don't want to admit they look a lot like humans choosing not to look away. So now it's your turn. If you heard a child crying tonight, would you stop? If the man at the desk treated you like a problem, would you push back if help showed up with clean hands and clear eyes? Would you take it, or would pride talk you out of your own rescue if it were you? What would you have done? Tell me in the comments, argue with me if you have to share the time. You took a risk on kindness and how it came back to you, or didn't tell me where you're watching from. Tell me who taught you to listen when it would have been easier to walk hit. Like if this story hit you somewhere real, subscribe if you want more true feeling. Stories told plain, without the sugar or the gloss, and leave your thoughts about that police station door. Should it be the last door to close or the first one to open? I'll be reading, I'll be right there in the replies, because the only way stories do anything out here is when we carry them together.